How is it going? Welcome to After the Weekend. I am your host, R to the Icky. We are still without my wonderful co-host, Maria. She's on vacation. She will be back January 31st. And tonight, though, I do have two wonderful guests lined up to join me as we review Gremlins. And let me bring them in. We have got Tom from Rouge Disney.
Howdy, everyone.
Yeah. And we've got Chris, the film school rookie. How are you, sir?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me, Rick.
You're welcome. Thank you so much both for being here tonight. Really excited about this. We've had Tom on a few times, but this is the first time we've had Chris, and it's exciting because from what I know, Chris is a genuine certified person in the film industry. So I'm kind of hoping for some maybe some cool insight. Maybe he knows something that we don't know about this movie, or at least hopefully he'll lie about knowing something we don't know about this movie. So, but before we get into it. We'll get into what's new with you guys, Tom. What's new and exciting with you, sir?
I'm exhausted, just as always. I had a week at the Poly, which or the Polynesian Village Resort, now that it's called. And guess what? A week inside the Disney bubble is 20 times more calories than you ever had, and 20 times more debt. That's kind of how it works. But it was fun, and it was a nice time. It was relaxing at some parts, and luckily didn't get that bad weather until I was done. It was like nice 70s the whole week.
Nice.
I know some of you have snow. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I've had some of that. Maybe Chris has too. And I was gonna say, yeah, Disney's the one place where you can walk 15 miles a day and still gain 10 pounds after a week.
It's the pixie dust. The pixie dust they add in, it just makes the calories more.
Yeah.
Because they're not big portions. It's just all that butter and sugar.
Yeah. And Chris, how about you, sir? What's new and exciting with you?
Well, this is the first full week of feeling somewhat normal again after catching COVID or whichever prevailing virus is making its move around. So I'm glad to be feeling better, and it's a good time. I was actually looking forward to the first show we were doing, but we had to reschedule because I wasn't feeling well. You weren't feeling well, and our other friend, how do you say his name?
Ro had a family emergency.
Yeah. So. And that was unfortunate, but I'm glad to be here and started my day watching the Gremlins with my wife because I decided, if I watch it right before the show, it'll be fresh. And it's probably been at least 20 years since I'd seen the film, but I had a blast. I caught so many things, so I'm glad to talk about it.
Well, cool, very, very good. Now I was gonna say I didn't get to see this movie new as a kid. I was only a year old when this came out, probably technically a little less than that. But I did grow up watching it. I'm not sure about Tom, if Tom did or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I was curious. A freshman in high school and I saw it in the theater.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to ask, did you see this when it came out? Because
yes,
I do know you are a bit older than we are.
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess when this came out, getting to see it brand new, I mean, kind of what was the experience or maybe the hype or the excitement behind it? What was your feelings, I guess, seeing this in the theater new?
Well, as soon as I realized it was a Spielberg film, I'm like, okay, it can't be that bad. I mean, because, as a kid, some of the most memorable movie-going experiences I had were Spielberg films like, Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. I think that was the first movie that I can recall actually crying, when E.T. died. But yeah, I mean those films made a huge impact on me and as a kid. So, and I've shared this story before, but I think the thing that spurred my desire to be involved in film, although I didn't get to do it till later in life after I sold my contracting company, was, seeing Star Wars Episode 4 in 1977. So I've been hooked on film, since then. But I grew up on a steady diet of Star Trek, The Electric Company, and Sesame Street. The TV was kind of my babysitter. So I have always been neck deep into just, consuming film and TV and things like that. So.
Yeah. Very cool. Very good. Well, cool. No, I'm glad it was a good memory for you watching this again. The past couple of years, I almost feel like I think I've watched this movie once or twice a year. I don't know why. I think maybe more so because my son likes it and thinks it's great. I know I've told this story before.
How old is your son?
He's 7.
7, okay.
And I think we actually did show it to him when he was 4 or 5 the first time. We were like,
it didn't freak him out?
No. But what I've told the story before on live streams, but I'll tell it again, just because I know my wife and son are downstairs watching. Oh, I see we got Jay in the chat. Thank you, sir, for the compliment on the nice hat. But we watched it, and my son was like, "That's really cool. What's this movie called again?"
We got 3PO here.
Yeah, we got Drunk 3PO on.
Hey,
he's like, what's this movie called again? The Germans? He's like, that's a pretty good movie, The Germans.
That sounds like Jay.
Yeah.
What direction you want to take? Because I can dish a lot of stuff that I picked up on.
Sure. Well, we kind of go into a little bit of a flow in here, but still getting the hang of running the live streams. I guess too, we should say hello to some of our audience. Didn't mean to forget you guys, but we've got Gilkman in here. Thomas, thank you for being in here, and we've got JT Gunter, wonderful friend of the channel, and the gentleman who designed our awesome logo. And here is my wife and son down there, hanging out downstairs watching it. We've got Phil.
Hey, Phil.
Yep. Everybody loves Phil. Got Science Fictionary. How's it going? Thank you for being here. We've also got Amen Fate, and congratulations on 200 subs. He was hosting a live stream earlier for that, which is a fantastic milestone for you, sir. And finally, we've got Mr. Drunk 3PO. Thank you so much for being here. We'll kick off. Usually we start off with kind of some basic facts on it. This movie was directed by Joe Dante, who, if you're not familiar with, he did this. He did The Explorers, Inner Space. Yeah, Explorers, Inner Space 2 is another great one, which they kind of, the design of the two ships mirror each other.
Yeah.
He did the second Gremlins, and I know I'm missing a few other films, but he was a really big director in the 80s. I mean, just a lot of iconic films, and was very good friends with Steven Spielberg, who produced this film. But the other one that I don't think I guess I realized I must have forgot, but that Chris Columbus wrote this, who directed Home Alone 1 and 2, and I'm trying to think. I want to say he did direct Uncle Buck, but he also did the first at least 2 Harry Potter films too. So another kind of big entertainment person there, who's definitely probably had a good impact on a lot of our childhoods.
Yeah.
Which was very cool. Another fun fact I always like to mention is the budget. If anybody wants to guess what this film cost to make, mind you, this is $1983.
Hey, Matt.
You guys, either of you want to take a guess on what you thought the budget would be for this?
I could have looked it up, but I'd say my guess is probably $30 million, somewhere in that range.
Okay. How about you, Tom?
I was gonna say like 20 to 30, so I'm gonna go with 24 million.
Okay. So Chris is probably closest in today's dollars. So today's dollars, it would be close to 31 million was the budget. But back in '83, it was 11 million. Which is amazing too for how good the special effects for a movie of this was. And then I guess the next one too is, what do you think, like, overall box office worldwide? What do you think it made?
I'd say 100 million plus.
Okay.
I'm guessing like 115.
115. I mean, I'll give it to you that you guys are close. So it did 153 million, which again today's 430 million is what that would equal.
It's a high-grossing film. Yep.
Yeah, it was. I want to say, I think the fourth highest grossing film of the year '84 when it came out. It actually released the same day as Ghostbusters, opened second to Ghostbusters.
I remember that because I watched both movies back to back.
Yeah. Yeah, some of these '80s movies we cover, I looked to see like what came out, and it's just like, man, such good movies. Every time I'm like, I feel like we don't ever have that choice these days of like, do I see this or do I see that?
There's one diamond every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're lucky if it's a diamond. It's more like a piece of copper.
Yeah, so opening week of this, third was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and 4 was Star Trek 3. So, I can't imagine.
Search for Spock or The Voyage Home?
Search for Spock.
Search for Spock,
yeah.
Okay.
I just, going to the movies to have that selection. I mean, I could only dream of having, that caliber of, choice.
Well, it was fun for me because I had two of my closest friends in high school. They both worked at a theater at one of the malls. It was a little farther away from me, but I'd go in and buy a ticket for a show, and I'd be like, I want to watch another one. And if John was at the ticket counter or ushering or whatever, they like, stay for another show. So there would be a day like that where I'd be there watching 3 or 4 films, paying for one. But that crime was way in the past, so he won't get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say probably it was probably a couple bucks to see a movie too.
It was usually, I'd say, between $5 and $7 if memory serves.
Yeah.
And of course, a matinee you get for $2.50. But most of the times with a matinee, only way you could get that would be on the weekend or if you had a day off from school.
Yeah.
Or cook off.
Yeah. Or skip. Yeah. Play hooky.
Yeah. Well, those who aren't familiar with the movie, I pulled this little synopsis from online just because I didn't feel like writing one for myself. But story of Gremlins is miniature green monsters tear through a small town of Kingston Falls. Hijinks ensue as a mild-mannered bank teller releases the hideous loonies after gaining a new pet and violating 2 of 3 simple rules. And I won't get into the rules. I'll see if anybody in the chat remembers what those are. Hilarious mayhem and destruction in a town straight out of Norman Rockwell. So when your washing machine blows up or your TV goes on the fritz, before you call the repairman, turn on all the lights, and look under the beds, you can never tell when there might be a gremlin in your house. So it's kind of a weird description. I probably should have read that before I chose that one, but it was pretty short and sweet. It's kind of a unique, though, monster movie. This is not quite like a, I kind of feel like with monster movies, right, they're typically like almost like, either like they like are playing God and create a monster by mistake, or, one comes from space. This is more of a, almost like man doesn't know what he's meddling with kind of monster movie. All righty, Matt. Well, thank you for stopping in. Appreciate it. And hope you have a good evening, sir.
See you later, Matt.
So, yeah, well, we'll start with you. What do you think, Tom? What did you think of this movie overall?
Well, so I wasn't really scared of it as a kid. I think I first saw it when I was like 4 or 5. So that was a good couple years after it came out and was released. I always found it as more dark Christmas comedy, if anything else. Like, it's not really a horror film in my mind. The way they play the Gremlins off and how easily they're defeated, it's sort of like a nuisance for the most part. Like when the mom's going through and taking care about like half of them in like the first time she sees them.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as like an allegory to products at the time, because like Gremlins are what happens when you always say like, oh, there's a gremlin in the car or something, like if something's not working right, and they use like weird 80s gadgets that were kind of coming out as the tools of implements to get rid of them, and those are the things that you might have found Gremlins in. So I thought that was a weird, at least in my mind now watching it. When I was a kid, I was like, oh, cool, they're blending it's set apart. And then like
I love the microwave part. That was the best.
I just figured out, like, did the bones liquefy too? Like, they just kind of made it whole liquid. But that always made me think of Indiana Jones. I don't know why, face melting, microwave melting. But I love the soundtrack. I love the music in it. I appreciate it more now. As a kid, I was just like, it was fun. But like now, it's like, oh, that's good. Then the story, the girlfriend's story, the really dark tale of Santa.
That was sad.
That went over my head as a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm just like, huh. And now, like, I was like 12, I think, the first time. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay.
Yeah, that's something that Joe Dante fought hard to keep in. That was like something he put in there specific, and Universal was like, this is too dark, and I forget, but somehow he won that battle. Before we jump on over to Chris, for my son, yes, that is correct. No bright lights, don't get them wet, and don't feed them after midnight. The 3 simple rules to follow in keeping a mogwai. How about you, Chris, overall, your thoughts, feelings on this film?
Well, it's interesting because, as a kid, it was merely about entertainment. And so watching it again, I found a plethora of stuff, and I guess I'll pull out a little bit of my, my film theory and film history. And there's a little bit of a generation, I'm a Gen Xer, and you guys are obviously younger than me. So that time, movie and entertainment wise, I think it was a great period to grow up in the 80s. And I just remember that was one of the big things in my life, was just always looking forward to a new movie coming out. Aside from that, really all we had was cable TV, and it wasn't always that great. And then the advent of the Betamax and the VHS and movie rental stores opening up, it was like always some aspect of my life revolved around, watching film and TV. But as an adult, it's funny because I remember specifically a conversation I had with my maternal grandfather. He was a Seabee in the Pacific during World War II. And he would drop that term a lot. He's like, oh, Gremlins. And this was years before the film came out. And I'd say, hey, Papu, what are you talking about? He's like, Gremlins? You don't know what Gremlins are? They're the bane of the war machine. I'm like, what are you talking about? Then he started telling me that, I remember the first story he told me were about British pilots, mostly bomber pilots during, I guess, the Blitz, or when they were fighting the Blitz, that these guys were saying they were seeing little creatures, damaging their planes in flight, and and then I also recall that Twilight Zone episode. I think it was William Shatner, right?
Yeah. It's like tearing at 30,000 feet.
And then, of course, when they made the movie, John Lithgow played that role, which I thought that was one of the best parts. That little short story is, he's seeing what no one else is seeing and losing his mind, all that kind of. I just thought it's one of those interesting urban legends.
There's even a little funny twist with that. If you guys remember the show 30 or not 30 Rock, Third Rock from the Sun
Yeah.
with John Lithgow, and then the high commit or the big giant head was the leader of the aliens, was played by William Shatner.
Exactly.
And earlier in the show, the first time they fly, John Lithgow's like, "There's something on the wing," and then when William Shatner first appears, he's flying, and when he gets off the plane, he's like, "I saw something on the wing," and John Lithgow's like, "Me too."
I missed that, but that's funny. I love those, paying homage to another film or whatever, like all those little inside jokes and things. And I found tons of them, so many. And one of the first things I thought of when I started, because I had actually forgotten it was a Christmas film. I started watching it. I'm like, oh yeah. Okay, this all makes sense. So, Spielberg produced the film, and Gary Marshall and his wife, whom most of us don't really care much about. I will not say her name.
Were they married yet at that time?
I do believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Gary's a great producer. He did a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, it's not saying that Kathleen is necessarily a bad person. I just know some of us in the Star Wars community hate what she's done, with the franchise. But that being said, one of Spielberg's biggest heroes in film and influences was Frank Capra. And I don't know how much you guys know about Frank Capra, but he was one of the 5 big filmmakers in U.S. war propaganda. He was actually hired as a major and worked at the Pentagon to run the war propaganda effort, and he did those films, Why We Fight. So, after the war, he got into more, happy films, happy movies, kind of going back to his roots. And, that's one of the films he's best known for is It's a Wonderful Life. So I actually saw a lot of parallels in Gremlins to A Wonderful Life. And let's see, I took tons of notes here. So, and we've got all kinds of things that I felt like he was similar ideals, or he was, paying homage to, like, the cocoons after the Mogwai transform, looked a lot like Aliens or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And they actually were playing the TV of the old Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
During that.
Well, not only that, the cocoons too, very much, I felt like almost were like a preview of what we got with the Gremlins, because they are very scaly.
Yes. Yeah, and it's like, even contrast the concept of Gizmo, he's like this cute little furry mammalian creature, and then what happens is they transform into this base, violent reptilian kind of nature. So it's like, if you want to look at it from a psychological perspective, you have the higher functioning, rational, calm mammalian brain, and then you break the rules and you get the violence of this, reptilian kind of mindset. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I also, another thing I remember specifically, the actress Polly Holliday, she played Mrs. Deagle. And when I lived in Alabama, she was actually a close friend of mine's cousin. And I think at the time she was, you remember that show Mel's Diner?
Yeah, she was Flo.
Flo, she was a regular on Mel's Diner.
Kiss Margaret.
Kiss Margaret, yeah. So I was kind of happy to see her in that role, but I was like, man, she's a mean old lady. So one of the things that, one of the parallels I saw, that her character was kind of paying homage to the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. Especially the way she died. She was out the window, and what did you see? You just saw her feet, like up in the air, just like when the house fell on top of the witch.
Even when we're introduced to her, right, and she's walking down Main Street holding the snowman's head. Yeah. But it was very much reminiscent to I can't think of who the Wicked Witch was prior to the tornado, but I can't even think of the actress who played
the
her.
Old lady, the mean old lady.
The old lady, she like comes up and she wants Toto, right? Yeah, just like how she wanted Billy's dog. No, that's a great parallel. I mean, now that you mention it, I'm like, oh my God, you're right.
Mm-hmm. So, and then there's, let's see, what else? Well, I think one of the funny little things I noticed is one of the Gremlins picked up the phone. He's like, phone home. You know, and there was plenty of ET references in the film as well.
Yeah.
Like when Stripe was hiding in the stuffed animals in the department store. I mean, that was an exact parallel to when ET was in the closet hiding with the stuffed animals.
Yeah.
So there were 2 ET references that I noticed. And then, of course, you had, you know, the Lost in Space thing when you had the robot at the convention.
Yeah.
Hoyt Axton was at the character's father. And they made they were talking to the DJ. Someone called in and started talking about the Gremlins or whatever. He's like, yeah, I'm not down with all this crazy Orson Welles shit. So they were kind of paying homage to War of the Worlds. And I think when they were, what was the bar called?
I can't think of the name of it either.
I don't know. I can't remember the name, but you know, that whole scene was jam-packed full of references to other films and stories. But the one that stood out the most was Flashdance. You know, one of them was in the the calf warmers and headband, all that kind of stuff. You know, it was silly. But at the same time, I was kind of noticing it today. I was like, wow, this is a lot more violent than I remember, even though it's like, you know, fake and whatnot. But I think one of the things that I found most fascinating was the creature workshop work they did on the film was fantastic. I mean, that level of animatronics and control. I've always been fascinated with that part of filmmaking, the practical effects. I mean, that is so much work.
So the cost per Mogwai or Gremlin was $30,000 to $40,000.
I believe it. Yeah, I absolutely believe it. And of course, I know this has been said by a lot of other people, but I just thought how much Gizmo and Yoda were very similar, but they did have the same creators, Creature Workshop wise.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very cool parallel.
Hello, Sherry. How are you? Thank you for stopping by and hanging out with us.
Just to give you the name of the actress, it was Marguerite Hamilton. The Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah, okay, you're right. It's not tip my tongue. I was like,
from the Wizard of Oz.
Margaret Hamilton. There's another Gremlin pop culture moment prior to all of this, and I don't know if Chuck Jones worked on this, but there was a Bugs Bunny cartoon where he was working on an airplane and there was a gremlin. And I want to say they actually referenced the cartoon in the second film. But yeah, if anybody remembers that cartoon, I remember seeing that too. So yeah, there was also that.
Well, was that referencing Gremlins or was that referencing Twilight Zone?
No. This was before Twilight Zone. So like this was, I want to say from, this is after World War II. So this is like early to mid 50s. This cartoon came out, and it was Bugs Bunny having to deal with a gremlin, if I'm not mistaken. I just thought of it now as when you were talking about the Twilight Zone episode. It made me think of that. It does pop up. I'm almost certain in the second.
Yeah, it was 1943.
Okay. Oh, all right. So it was during World War II. Okay.
Yeah, Doug Jones and Mel Blanc did a lot of propaganda cartoons.
Yeah. Well, it's the reason too. I wonder if he had worked on that too, is because and he's actually been in a couple other Joe Dante films, but Chuck Jones has a cameo in this film. He plays Mr. Jones. We get to see him when Billy is drawing the cartoon of Mrs. Deagle in the bar.
Yeah.
And he shows it to the guy, and he's like, "Great job!" That was Chuck Jones, who's a famous Looney Tunes animator. But that's. You kind of mentioning some of those things. It's like I never really thought about that, but now you mention them, it's like, yeah, I totally see all of that. Now that you do mention it, especially too the Wizard of Oz, like, she is very much the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
what about the Main Street set? Was there anything familiar to you guys about that set?
We've seen that thousands of times.
I've walked down that set at Universal Studios.
Yeah,
I'm sure tons of people have, but they used it for Back to the Future. I know a couple other films I can't recall, but that was a mainstay set.
Warner Brothers too, which is not too far away. Their studio, they actually have a similar like Town Square set too. Mm-hmm. That same thing has been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'll be there next week. I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah. But yeah, if you ever get to go to Universal Studios in Hollywood and take the tram tour, they take you through the all like the sets and lots that they have, and probably another one where you can really see a lot of it is if you ever watch Gilmore Girls. My wife loves that show. I've caught moments from it, but when they're in the Town Square area, it's like this is Gremlins, this is Back to the Future, where they are. It's very, very iconic. Another thing too, like I really liked about this movie. I mean, even though you can tell they're matte paintings, but how much of the landscape was matte paintings in this? It's such a cool technique. That's another one that I went on Warner Brothers backlot tour, and they still were doing like matte paintings for backgrounds, and like it is like think of walking into a warehouse and the whole wall is a giant canvas that they're painting a background for.
Yeah, those indoor studios are amazing, man. The stuff that they do is really incredible.
Yeah, it's wild. That's another very iconic moment. So story-wise, what's what are your guys' thoughts and feelings of the story, especially thinking about when we watched this as a kid, how he felt about it, and then now having this rewatch as an adult, and we look at things a little differently. So we'll start with you, Tom.
Well, as a kid, I just thought it was something that my parents showed me to make sure I understood what happened when we got a pet. Like, you have to treat it right. You have to be. Now it's more like, this is a warning if you're going to have a kid.
Yeah.
that is my like it is going to ruin it could ruin everything in your life. Everything will change if you don't treat it right. It will be a demonic spawn, and that's my viewpoint. It's a good warning story, like, because even now, if my dog drinks after 8 o'clock, I'm waking up at 3 a.m. to walk her. So. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm petting her right now. That's why my hands keep moving. I'm not doing anything weird. She's sitting underneath me.
Tom, where are your hands?
I'm sorry, but she's like right here underneath me right now.
No worries.
No, she's leaving. She's bored. But yeah, that was. I mean, honestly, though, it also shows you that the problems aren't that insurmountable because, like I said, they have an easy enough time for the most part handling them. It's not a super huge task to defeat. So that's why I think it's also showing you that whatever does come your way, whatever hardship, you can take care of it and get past it without too much damage to yourself. I don't know.
That makes sense. As a father of 5 kids, I can tell you they all have the potential to be gremlins. Yes, trust me. I mean, my youngest just turned 16, and she's 7 years younger than her sister. So most of my kids are in their mid to late 20s already. But yeah, we had plenty of gremlin moments, and I specifically remember a few times when my kids would break things or mess things up. Now my dad had this whole thing, I'd be like, he'd say, well, who did it? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, so you're saying who did it? I'm like, yeah, who did it? Then he'd start using the gremlins every now and then. Oh, so you're going to tell me the gremlins broke? I'm like, what's a gremlin, Dad? So that's just another personal reference, but I thought it's funny. But I ended up doing the same thing with my kids, messing around with them when they break stuff. It's like, it's okay. I know the gremlins did it. And my kids would look at me like, what's a gremlin, Dad? I'm like, oh, it's what broke the bookshelf, because only gremlins can climb on the bookshelves and
Tim
tear up
says
half the
hi.
library.
I was gonna say I wish I could. I wish I could say that we've had moments where we're like, who broke this? My son is the opposite. If he breaks something, he starts crying immediately, and he's like, "I'm in so much trouble. I'm grounded." And he starts punishing himself too. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm grounded for a week.
Yeah. Well, with 5 different kids and their different
Yeah.
personalities, I had all kinds of fun.
Yeah.
And my one daughter, Sarah, she would always rat her brothers out. So if I really want to know what was going on, she'd come and tell me. And of course, she's in law school right now. She'll be a lawyer at the end of the year, which I think is really funny. It's her personality. And I had my youngest son, Noah. He would he would just fall apart and melt. Like, oh, I'm so terrible. I did this day. Like, he would usually come to me. But his older 2 brothers, man, they play the hard game and deny it all the time, or they throw their younger brother into the bus or whatever. But so yeah, it is kind of interesting allegory for having kids, because they do bring a lot of chaos, but they bring way more joy into your life.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say for me, I probably like Tom, where it was just as a kid, it was a cool movie, and thought the Gremlins were hilarious. I know, like first 2 times I saw it, it did scare me a little bit. I grew up in Michigan, and every house in Michigan has a basement, so when it's dark, it always would freak you out. And if you hear something, it's like, is it a gremlin? But watching it now, I still love it, but I look at a lot of like the human characters, and I'm like, why did they do that? What's going on with this choice? I really look at a lot of that portion of it, but still, I love all the Gremlin moments, even now as an adult.
Yeah.
And even kind of the silliness, especially like with the bar scene, right? And they do the flash dance, and then there's like the poker scene, and like the Gremlins got like a Rudolph puppet. Yeah. He's like just annoying the other one. All that stuff is hilarious to me. I love it.
Yeah, it was funny. The movie theater scene was funny too.
Yeah,
there was a lot of good humor in there, even though they were nasty, mean little things. I think the comedy kind of tempered it quite a bit.
Oh yeah, and it's funny you bring up it's a Christmas movie, and it was fully intended to actually, it takes place during Christmas, but it was going to be released during Christmas, but they actually bumped it up to the summer.
Yeah.
So it was going to be a Christmas movie, and that's kind of something too. I know a lot of people kind of talked about. Do you consider it though a Christmas movie?
Not really.
Not really. What about you, Chris? You feel like this is a Christmas movie?
Well, I guess that's probably the intent, but I don't think it makes a big difference one way or another. But thematically, I think it is a Christmas movie because so much of the story parallels It's a Wonderful Life. There's even, I think, a few odes to Miracle on 34th Street as well.
Yeah.
But I think that was Spielberg's intent.
Sure. When you kind of stop and look at like the theming and really kind of what's going around, it certainly is more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard, even though everybody, will argue that's a Christmas movie, right? But just curious how you guys felt on that. I'll be honest, if I think of Gremlins, I still don't really think of Christmas, even though Christmas is such a big theme in that story.
Well, I just don't think that you could take the Christmas element out and it being set there and it'd still be the same movie. So that's why I really don't think it's a Christmas film. The same way I don't think Die Hard's a Christmas film, because Die Hard could take place in New Year's or on Thanksgiving and it'd still be the same film. The element of the Christmas spirit and Christmas in general has to be an effect on that story. That's my personal opinion on Christmas films.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a good take. I was going to say, let's maybe kind of get into the cast of the movie. And same thing. We'll start with
all that matters is Phoebe Cates.
Yeah,
she was the heartthrob in the '80s, which I thought was funny too, because Judge Reinhold was in the film. He had a very small role, but him and Phoebe Cates were
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Fast Times, yeah. And I remember that was.
I always thought you were cute, Brad. Anybody's familiar with that scene?
Oh yeah. But that was like the most verboten film when I was in high school. My dad explicitly said, "You're not allowed to watch this movie," and I was like, "Oh, really?" So that was an invitation to make sure I saw the film.
Yeah. Well, we keep it PG-13 around here, so we won't get too in depth in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, but, I hear you.
I will agree. I think a lot of people in the '80s and even early '90s definitely all loved Phoebe Cates.
Yeah, and I'd say that was probably Sean Penn's best and only performance. No, I'm just kidding. No, he's done other good stuff, but anyway.
Well, we'll go with you, Tom. I mean, you don't have to go through every single person in the cast, but just, maybe what are your thoughts and feelings on the cast? Is there anybody that really sticks out for you? Anybody that you really, really liked?
I really love the father. I love. He reminded me of someone in my family who was that tinkerer trying to have his own American dream. So it was like very endearing when I was a kid, because I just saw like a similar figure. And actually, the whole family unit was a really well thought out look at a family in the '80s, because you had the kid trying to help. Like that was sort of like the beginning of like the generational home kind of becoming less of a thing a little bit. And I just thought, like, the mom and the father, I think Corey Feldman was in it also as like the neighbor.
Yeah.
He equaled out to every like annoying younger neighbor. Like he played that to a T.
Yeah.
And he had that became more popular in the '90s, but they had that bowl cut going. And
well,
go ahead. Sorry.
I just also like, it's like typical kid too, because it does. This makes me think of my son, but it's like, oh my God, look, it's like little tiny like monkey bears that that he has, and he's like, awesome, oh cool, comic book. It's like like, okay, enough of that. Comics.
Yeah, the attention span of a tadpole.
Yeah. But
I also like the teacher, the science teacher.
Yeah,
but like you said, also R2, there was a lot of decisions that the adults make that are like kind of live action cartoon decisions.
Let me just stick my hand underneath, the desk.
It's like, this isn't going to go well.
and that was always one of the scenes that always freaked me out as a kid.
Yeah. Well, the syringe in his butt was like, the revenge was funny. Yeah, obviously he didn't like getting poked and getting this blood drawn, so that was funny.
Well, how about you, Chris? Other than Phoebe Cates, I'm sure there's still.
Well, a friend of mine on Twitter had posted something. Rachel, she said she had met. Was it Gilligan?
Zach?
His last, she had met Zach at a function a couple years ago. I'll give a shout out to Rachel. I don't know if she's watching, but she works in theater and stage in London. She's a real sweetheart. She's like, I went to the PCC London screening of this 3 years in a row. Okay, and chatted with the amazing Zach Galligan. Yeah, that's funny. So I didn't even know he was on Twitter till today, so I gave him a follow.
Very cool. Cool. Well, I definitely agree. I really like the dad a lot, Hoyt Axton.
Yeah.
There's something about him, and either I feel like Tom might agree or disagree with me on this, but he reminds me of the live-action version of the dad on A Carousel of Progress. There's something about him.
Yes, I
Okay.
get what you're saying. I
Yeah.
agree with it. I get what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
that sort of a little bit of sage wisdom, but also a little of naivety behind him.
Yeah.
It's like a good balance of that.
Yeah, like if they, I mean, he's no longer with us, but yeah, if they ever made a live action Carousel of Progress movie, I would cast Hoyt Axton to be the dad.
I could also be Uncle Orville.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of a cool, chill kind of guy. I think he was on. I used to watch Hee Haw a lot when I was a kid, and I remember Hoyt Axton being on Hee Haw and performing.
And wasn't he was he a country singer or like a folk singer too?
Yeah, it's like country folk. I mean, kind of Southern guy. You know, he was born in Oklahoma, lived in Texas, Tennessee, that kind of area. So he was an adorable redneck.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple other people that stand out in this movie. They're just like great bit characters, but like Dick Miller is Mr. Futterman, the guy who drives the plow, and that's somebody else that he's frequently in.
And he was the war veteran who knew the Gremlins story, right?
Yeah, he told the Gremlins story. But he's a regular with Joe Dante films. Was in here. We actually don't get his name, or at least his last name, till the second movie, but grandfather, Mr. Wing, was played by Key Luke, who was Master Po from Kung Fu.
Oh,
so that's the person who actually owned Gizmo at the beginning. Jonathan Banks plays the deputy. Jonathan Banks is Mike from Breaking Bad.
Yep.
And just how young he looks in this.
Oh my gosh, he looks so young, right?
Billy's mom was played by Frances Lee McCain, who actually was Marty McFly's grandma in Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah.
Which was I thought was very funny, as well as his boss was one of the grandparents from 16 Candles. He was one of the exchange parents for Long Duck Dong. I always be like, Dong?
I totally forgot about that character.
What's his grandpa's automobile? And there's actually a couple other cameos in that movie during the convention. There's somebody else in another telephone booth that's actually composer Jerry Goldsmith. And there's a guy on I want to say like a 3-wheel bike, or like recumbent bike riding through. It's Steven Spielberg. Oh,
I didn't even catch that.
On that bike. Plus, not only do we see Robbie Robot, but we see the time machine from the old 1950s time machine, and then it vanishes in between takes. If anybody notices that, and like people in the background are like, where did they're freaking out because this guy just disappeared. And some of the voices of the Mogwai and Gremlin were done by some fairly well-known people. Most people know. Gizmo was voiced by Howie Mandel. Stripe was voiced by Frank Welker, who pretty much does any type of creature voice in Hollywood. I mean, and sometimes too, like it's like dog barking. Frank Welker. It's like they didn't even just record a dog barking; they just bring him in, and so he's able to do it. But Frank Welker, extremely famous, the voice of Fred from Scooby-Doo, also the voice of Megatron from Transformers cartoon, as well as Peter Cullen, who was Optimus Prime, voiced some of the Mogwai and Gremlins, as well as Michael Winslow of Police Academy fame.
Oh, yeah.
Jones.
Yeah.
In fact, the kind of like the jazz portion in the bar, where you hear like the bass playing, that's totally, you can tell it's Michael Winslow.
That guy was amazing. The stuff he could do with his voice.
Yeah.
He was like really kind of the first beatboxer. He could do all that stuff.
Yeah. Shocked he never went up against Biz Markie in a beatbox competition ever. And, it's weird seeing Judge Reinhold in this because his character's kind of there and he's kind of an antagonist to Billy, but then he just disappears.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happens to him. And I actually did find out, though, that there was a bit more to his story, and they cut it out. But there was a moment where Billy and Kate run into the bank. They actually find Mr. Corbin smashed over the head by a clock, and then they find out that Gerald has locked himself in the vault and has gone crazy. So that's actually what ended up happening to his character. But yeah, I always thought that was like really strange because they really do play him up as being kind of a foil, an antagonist to Billy, but then he's just gone.
It hit the editing room floor.
Yeah. So I always felt that was strange. Tom had mentioned this. It's definitely the theme to Gremlins is very iconic. I can't say there's really much else music-wise that stands out a ton, but just you hear that theme, you know exactly what it is. Yeah. And it is very much
a funny
like
song.
You could just hear them mumbling to that song too.
Yeah.
That's the best part of it.
Yeah.
It was the Minions before Minions.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
That is. It's a very good point. I guess next we could get into a little bit of if anybody has any trivia, fun facts about the film. I do have quite a few, and in case neither of you don't, but Tom, do you have anything that we haven't covered yet?
We were talking about it in the studio before we started. There are 2 Disney references in this Ablin film. One being the theater scene with Snow White and the 7 Dwarves, and one of the Gremlins wearing Mickey ears.
Yeah,
which
that's right.
Yeah.
So there is a odd. The Hi-Ho scene actually was like one of my favorite parts. I think JT also said that too. The movie theater scene, just seeing them act like rowdy kids watching, which honestly I don't know why, but I think it actually timed out. I think that Snow White was re-released around then. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm just like a theater actually having Snow White on in-house at that point in time always now makes me question it, because like back then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, now I'm like, wait a minute, that was on the vault. That was, so I don't know if in '83 they did a re-release.
Yeah, they might have. Part of me, I'm like, I think I could have just watched the whole movie of them watching Snow White. That's how damn it was.
A Mystery Science Theater of the Gremlins watching Snow White and other Disney films would be hilarious.
That would be funny. That would be really good.
Or even like them doing a commentary where it's dubbed by Gremlins would be good.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So, what did you guys think about the product placement? Because when I go back and I watch these older films, you don't notice that stuff right away. Then I noticed a lot of product placement in this film.
I do remember the one thing that like really kind of stood out was kind of in the beginning is you see the big old like Burger King in the town square. I know in the bar, I want to say there was some beer advertising. Coors. I can't think. Coors, okay. Yeah.
And then you had the mobile gas station. There was a couple other things. I'm trying to, and I should have written that down. But I always find it interesting now, especially being in the industry, that people are still paying for product placements, to get their brand identity out there. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah. No, I did though. I'm like, they're really showing off that Burger King. And I didn't look too deep into it. I guess I probably should have if there was anything like promotional that Burger King had done after catching that. I mean, I know they didn't ever really make toys, but they do have toys now. I mean, now, like, I want to say, like, I think it's NECA or McFarlane toys, even Pop have made a fair amount of Gremlins merchandise. My son has a has a singing Gizmo downstairs, and he's got a little Gizmo and Stripe figurine. But,
yeah, I remember my brother had Gizmo because he's 5 years younger than me, so he was really into all the toys and stuff.
Was there a like a toy line though that came out with this movie?
Yeah, there was. I'm trying to remember exactly. I do remember he had this Gizmo, and I can't remember if it was fuzzy or plastic. And
I remember having a plushie Gizmo.
Yeah, it was plushy, and we also had like the green scaly mean gremlin. I remember that.
I think there was a puppet one also. I remember having a puppet gremlin.
I want to say, like, when the second movie came out, I could have swore they did kind of like with Gizmo, they did the same thing that they did for Garfield. Remember the suction cup Garfield that, like, everybody had in the 80s?
Yeah.
I swear they did one for Gizmo with that. I don't know why. But maybe I'm just imagining that.
Wasn't there also the Gizmo in the Barbie car at that time? Like,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, he's driving, Barbie's Corvette.
Now it makes sense that Joe Tante did Small Shoulders. I just put that in my head together.
That's right. Yes, yeah. That's one I forgot to mention. And actually, I think I watched that a month or two ago. He did, Small Soldiers, and that's even got a Dick Miller cameo in it too. He plays the guy who delivers the toys to the toy store. Yeah. Let's see.
I just texted my brother. I know he'll remember because.
Oh, okay. There you go. So I was also kind of wondering too, like Mogwai. I kind of wondered, like, was that something that was made up for this movie, or was that like an actual movie or actual word at all? And actually, in Cantonese, it means devil, demon, or gremlin. And in Mandarin, oh no, it's just Mandarin. It's the pronunciation of it.
And they're also a Scottish rock band formed in '95.
Yeah, I have heard of that band before too. Yes, JT. Maria does hate this movie. She says that they're slimy and gross, and I think she's talking about maybe when they come out of the cocoon, or the cocoon itself is it's kind of snotty, mucusy, and then the death of the character Stripe, he essentially melts into a puddle of snot at the end. For a lack of a better description of that. But
gotta love a good physical melting.
Yeah.
We don't get those anymore. You don't get a good physical, like, villain melting away type of thing.
And you can even kind of give that like a little bit of like a nod to almost the Wicked Witch melting, I felt like too. I did kind of think of that in that scene. Originally, they had tried to use monkeys to play the Gremlins and put a mask on them. And it did not work because the monkeys that they tested freaked out when they stuck a mask on them. Shocker. This movie, too, along with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, inspired the MPAA to create the PG-13 rating.
Yeah, seeing Stripe melt, that was kind of freaky and scary. Yeah.
And actually, that rating came out pretty quickly because these came out in the summer, both films. And I want to say by the end, in December of '84, was the very first time they gave a movie a PG-13 rating. I forget what movie it was. We'd actually talked about this on Inside the Booth once, but because they, just people are like, it's clearly this, those movies are not an R, but they're just too extreme to be a PG-13.
It was Red Dawn, the first one.
Okay, Red Dawn, yes, that
in '84.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. I was just looking it up.
Another great film.
Another classic film, yeah.
Yeah.
Wolverines!
Another kind of thing that I don't know if you guys noticed, but Mrs. Deagle had named all her cats after different currency. There was ruble, peso, dollar bill, and not only that, at the beginning, I didn't catch this, but at the beginning there's a car that's broken down in the street with its head up and smoke coming out. It's actually a AMC Gremlin that is broken down.
I had a friend that had one of those things, and that car never worked.
And it's kind of funny too, because Billy drives a VW Beetle. It's almost kind of funny that they didn't have him just drive a Gremlin.
Yeah.
With that, I always kind of thought about that. And then one of the reasons for the no bright lights was to actually help with the special effects. They were worried about them potentially not looking as good on film, so to keep things dark. That was actually one of the rules.
Usually on that type of animatronics, they have at least two operators.
Yeah,
you've got someone with their hand in the puppet, then you have someone that operates like the hands and the eyes and the facial gestures and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that's a lot of work.
I didn't look up quite, how they were operating the Gremlins. I mean, today, if they were to make that a practical effect, I mean, it would probably be handled by, I would assume, at least 3 or 4 operators with airplane controllers for like RC airplanes. And somebody probably work the eyes and the eyebrows, somebody work the mouth, and somebody's working ears.
Yep.
It would be a little interesting to know, what they did, especially too, just I think of like electronics that they had back then for 1984, and they're such a small design.
It is pretty cutting edge for the time. I mean, miniaturization has always been a problem with stuff like that, and now, geez.
Well, they had to have a couple of different designs, right? Because when they had the close-ups and you're not seeing the other humans with them, it's easier for them to make a slightly larger puppet and scale thing.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on with them in full scale with people, though, in this movie. So I don't know how much they actually did where they potentially maybe created something bigger. They actually did talk a lot about they had more troubles with the Mogwais, in particular Gizmo, because he was smaller. So it was a lot tougher to make it work correct. I mean, there's a lot of zoom-ins of Gizmo's face, which potentially maybe that they might have made something a little bit upscaled. But all the other Gremlins are pretty much always in scale with everybody else. There's no like unique shots of them, I felt like, during it. Other than you can definitely tell when they've got a lot of them in like a scene, especially like the bar, that there are some that are less detailed and less animated than others. And then, last thing I could share, they did say Judd Nelson and Emilio Estevez were considered for the role of Billy.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I couldn't really see either one of them doing it. Because these guys usually were in more serious roles, but.
Well, I think too with those two, I almost feel like it would have taken away maybe a bit from like Gizmo, because Gizmo's really the star of the movie.
Yeah.
And I feel bad saying this a little bit because I'm sure he is a very nice guy, but I will also say that Zach Gallagher or Gilligan was a little dull.
Yeah.
Not like a lot of like emotion with him, especially with like everything that was going on. Like, I don't know, like he's very monotone.
Was pretty chill about everything that was going on.
Yeah.
Really chill, actually.
And, I think the Lance Guest from Last Starfighter, I think he could have probably done a little bit better job with the role.
Yeah. Another great film.
Yeah, that's another one.
Hear they're gonna reboot that or remake it. That would be awesome.
It's gonna end up being like a Fortnite thing. God.
That I was going to say it's funny too. You mentioned that because I would almost say that is probably our most requested film to review by guests.
Let's
is
do
the Last
it.
Starfighter.
I love that
Yeah.
film.
Yeah, I might have to do that where I get a bunch of you guys because we've had like 4 people go. Can I come back and do the Last Starfighter?
Yeah. Speaking of reboots, did you guys see the tweet today that Disney is going to reboot Firefly?
I did hear that.
I know.
It's one of those things.
I'm not excited about it because if you're going to reboot it, you got to do it right. I mean, they got to bring the original actors back. Nobody can do Nathan Fillion like him, man.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, and plus I think of
the only actor I could think who would do that kind of well is Chris Pratt, but he's too big for Disney Plus.
He's
way too big for that. Yeah.
But I'm just saying similar humor type.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like everybody though on that show. I mean, like I think of Adam Baldwin as Jane.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Maria's favorite scene in Gremlins, the part where it says the end.
The end.
Well, Alan Tudyk technically is in Disney's camp right now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean,
Frozen and all that
him
stuff.
as Wash, even Gina Torres as Zoe is like another one where like
I love Gina Torres.
I love
she's
her.
So good in that role. Yeah. And Morena Baccarin. Oh, who doesn't love that woman? She's gorgeous.
But and isn't it? It's Summer Glau.
Summer Glau. And her brother, I forget his name.
I was gonna say, out of all of them, her brother's the only one where I'm like, man, I could care less if he came back.
Yeah, he was a good supporting character, but it wasn't. The depth was never there.
Oh, I can't think of her name, but the girl who plays Kaylee, I loved her.
Yes, she's awesome.
If they were going to do this, though, they'd have to make it before the war. They'd have to do.
And then we have no more Preacher because Ron Glass unfortunately has passed. But but he was great.
Yeah.
Too. It is. That's one of the best movies, or not best movies. I'm sorry, best shows.
Serenity was a good movie too.
Yeah.
It was good until somebody died in it, and then I was like,
yeah, when they killed.
Screw the film. I'm done with it,
man. Yeah, I was pretty disappointed. So.
Yeah. But the show is phenomenal. And I agree. I don't know how I feel about that too, with Disney redoing that. I mean,
well, I'll never forgive Fox for canceling it. So,
yeah.
Well, now you can have the anger at the same place. Disney is Fox,
right? Yeah, they own the rights now, right? There you go.
Yeah.
That makes
sense.
We'll know there'll be. I was gonna say we'll know there'll be Vespas in it. I'm guessing.
Please don't go there right now.
No, yeah.
Sorry.
That's
been my Twitter timeline for a week. Vespas. Vespas.
I was gonna say Sunday night I was already on somebody's. Yeah, yesterday. I was like, how long ago was it? Yeah, last night I was on somebody's live stream talking about that. It's just like,
I haven't watched the episode yet, so I'm just going by what a lot of folks I've been following are saying. So, anyway, that's funny. If you want, I'm going to give my opinion about the Book of Boba Fett. I had literally zero expectations going into the show, so I've been able to enjoy it for the fact that it's just Star Wars. I'm not a fence sitter, but I don't get as bent out of shape as some of the guys in our group. The high society, whatever.
Yeah. Chris and I are in a pretty big Twitter group chat, and there are definitely some salty people in the chat.
Salty opinions.
Yeah,
I love everybody in the chat. I love them all. If they're watching, they know that. But I'm a little more. I think. Yeah, I guess I just take a little different approach to the thing. And there are some filmmakers in the group, like Matt. And I think we've had some cool discussion. And I respect everyone's opinions, but I think lately I just get a little a little tired of all the griping.
There's definitely these days, I mean, particularly for Star Wars, but for a lot of things, I guess probably the best word to describe it, though, it is like a hate boner for things.
Yep.
I don't know any other word to use for it. And I mean, some of it's just like, I've been disappointed so much with stuff, though, but I'm like, I just can't get angry about it. I'm just like,
I know. Well, I think a lot of us had expectations, and no shade on Doomcock, because I know he has good connections, but I remember getting my hopes up like a year and a half ago that She Who Will Not Be Named was on her way out, and I would love to see, Favreau be running. He gets it. In my personal opinion, not only is he so effing talented, like Favreau's just an amazing creator and writer, and I think he gets it. Like, but maybe that's because he's a Gen Xer like me, and we've got this mindset of what we expect from Star Wars. And that's no disrespect to younger fans. It's just like we all have our expectations, and I feel like in film entertainment now, it's in vogue to not just subvert but nuke everyone's expectations these days, and it gets annoying.
Well, we have had 2 gems recently that actually went at least to our expectations, though, with Ghostbusters and Spider-Man.
Absolutely, dude. I was so happy with Afterlife. I was afraid to watch it, but I'm like, all right, I'm just going to watch it. And it was fantastic. I watched it twice, actually. Really enjoyed that. What was the other one you said, Tom?
Spider-Man.
Oh, yes. No Way Home, or whatever it's called.
No Way Home.
Yeah. Amazing. I even got choked up a couple of times. I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. It was awesome. I was so happy with that film.
Yeah.
All right, to bring it back, I was just going to say one thing. Who would you cast now for a modern take on Gremlins?
Modern take on Gremlins. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He played one of the roles in Dark Matter. I should have remembered his name. I'm gonna look it up. Dark Matter cast. Shout out to Joseph Malozzi. What's up, friend?
Oh, there's my nephew in there. Hey, Mitchell, how are you, buddy? Well, I was gonna say this is just probably me being lazy saying this. I'll be honest. I could see like
Anthony.
I was gonna say I could see Tom Holland being in this.
I figured you were gonna say that. That's what I was.
Yeah,
Mark Ben David. So
that name sounds familiar, but I'm not familiar with that show.
You haven't watched Dark Matter?
No, no.
Oh, bro, you're missing out.
But you know who I would cast in the Judd Judge Reinhold role would be Adam Driver.
Yeah. Now, who would we have play Mrs. Deagle?
Kathleen Kennedy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What about
Phoebe Cates? Who's playing Phoebe Cates?
I broke Chris again. First time I told him I punched a midget in a mosh pit, and
Morena Baccarin. How about that? Baccarin. I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
I don't think she can be Phoebe Cates. That's like a 20-year difference in age or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
It's gonna end up being Zendaya. If you cast Tom Holland, it'll end up being Zendaya.
What about?
I still think Freddie Highmore would actually play a better job as.
What about Ariana
Billy.
Grande? That would be funny.
She's the size of a gremlin, though. The scale would be weird.
She's very petite, that's for sure. Selena Gomez. That would be good.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I take it back. Actually, I would still stick with Spider-Man, but I would say Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone for those two.
So move it up to like college. So they're like they're
The only reason I say that though is they both had very good chemistry.
Oh yeah.
So it's a couple wanting to have a kid, getting a pet for the first time that comes from their estranged uncle.
Let's rewrite it. I know some people we can send the proposed script to. Let's do it.
Well, I was gonna say Tom has a stand-in for storyboarding there on his shoulder.
Yes.
Well, most people think it is a gremlin. I should probably just paint it green one day and see what happens. It's just shows you how far Star Wars has fallen. If I'm in Galaxy's Edge, and they say, "Oh, is that from Labyrinth?"
Oh no, that's bad.
And the other thing, it's cast members. It's the people that work there.
JT said Elliot Page.
Oh God,
that's a yeah. There you go, Elliot Page. Actually, for some reason, for a minute before the film started, I thought Elliot Page was. Never mind. Totally. Yeah, don't get me going. I preferred Elliot the old way, but I'll leave it at that. So.
I'm not going there.
No, I'm not either.
Thanks, JT. Look what you did. Yeah, you know, I mean, part of me goes, I'm kind of shocked in a way that Gremlins hasn't been redone, but at the same time, I don't think Spielberg would go for it.
Has any Spielberg production ever been redone?
No, I don't think so.
So I think those are going to be the only films that will be, until he is sadly no longer with us. They will be the only ones that will never be touched.
But even Joe Dante, I think, has it's kind of like, it's like Robert Zemeckis, though. I think he's got a fair amount of ownership with the property too, because anytime they've ever talked about potential of a remake of Back to the Future, they never talked to Spielberg. They talked to Zemeckis, who's like, you're gonna have to wait till I'm dead before I'll ever allow it.
Yeah, it's a lot. A lot of it is about the rights, and that was actually that was Universal. So I guess that would fall under. Didn't Amazon buy Universal, or I'm thinking something else?
Comcast.
No.
Comcast.
So Comcast,
so
NBC.
Yeah. But we're looking at what 30, 35, 36 years. So
37.
37. Okay, don't remind me.
It's still got a long way until that gets to anywhere near being in public domain.
Yeah.
Well, if they see money in it, they'll redo it. I mean, that's kind of the way most of the stuff works.
Oh, no, I was wrong. 38.
38. Thanks, dude. You're making me feel extra old today.
I can make you feel old by just saying my age, I guess.
How old are you, man?
33.
Oh, you're not that much younger than me. Not that much. I'm 52.
I'll be 39 in October.
Oh, you're almost older than dirt.
Yeah, almost.
No.
But well, cool. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I think we've kind of said everything we have to say about Gremlins tonight, but I really appreciate you guys both being here to review this with me. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. Definitely would love to have you guys both back again in the future. But definitely a great movie though. A lot of memories, a lot of nostalgia with it, and I think if you've never seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. I don't know how you guys both feel about that, but
no, I agree.
Definitely a good family film.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to come back and do Gremlins too.
Yeah. That's definitely something we could definitely do in the future too. A movie that I don't think is as good as the first one, but it's got its own charm though. It's unique.
Well, if it's got Robert Picardo in it, it's gonna be silly.
Yeah, who's this is something I've said a lot tonight. That's another regular for Joe Dante.
Yeah.
Films. So yeah, no, that would be great.
Cowboy and
Yeah,
the holographic doctor, and he's a good actor. I don't like his opinions online very much, but
in the Burbs, him and Dick Miller are the garbage men.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
Back when he had a head full of hair.
Yeah. So, alrighty, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I will be back next Sunday. I'm going to be doing a special episode with my family. So it'll be me, the wife, and our son. We're going to be reviewing, it was my son's pick, Captain Underpants the movie.
Awesome.
So
my kids love those books and movies.
Yeah, he's a big fan of those. So we will be doing that. I haven't quite picked the time yet, but I will post that on Twitter.
Are you doing it in costume?
No, not doing it in costume. My son will have his typical mask on like he always does when he makes guest appearances, because he is a little Spidey. But no, we will not be in costume for that. But definitely looking forward to this, especially him. He's excited to be on YouTube, where he'll be famous now. So, yeah, we will see you then. And then, like I said, my wonderful co-host will be back to join me on January 31st. I don't know what we'll be reviewing then. It's her pick. So, excited for that too. But as I said, everybody have a good evening. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Have a great week.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone, for stopping by.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye.